Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive in, if you're new here, hit subscribe, because today's story is one you don't want to miss. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Weight of Home. The plane wheels touched down, and my stomach dropped with them. 6 years. 6 years since I had run from this city with nothing but a suitcase, a secret growing inside me, and a heart I thought would never stop bleeding. You're home now, Jay. Breathe. A small hand tugged at my sleeve. Appa, is this really where Uncle June lives? I looked down at Hayon, my son, 5 years old going on 6, his dark hair sticking up from sleeping the whole flight, his eyes wide with a hope I hadn't earned the right to give him. I don't know if he still lives here, baby, I said, forcing my voice steady. Hayon's face fell, just slightly, the way it always did when I gave him an answer that wasn't the one he wanted. But you said Austin was your home, and his home too, so maybe. I crouched down and fixed the collar of his little jacket so I wouldn't have to look at him while I answered, maybe. The truth sat heavier than the suitcase in my hand. Somewhere in this city was Seojun Kang, the alpha who had been my best friend since we were 17, the man whose photograph still sat on our nightstand in a frame Haon dusted every Sunday, and the father who did not know his son existed. Do you think he'll like me? Haon whispered, the same question he'd been asking for months now, ever since he started noticing the empty space where other kids had 2 parents. My chest ached. Anyone who meets you loves you instantly. That's just a fact. He grinned, missing tooth and all. Even Uncle June? Especially him. That was the problem. I had spent 6 years convincing myself I made the right choice. That leaving without a word protected June from a responsibility neither of us asked for. That raising Haon alone in Seattle, far from every memory that could break me open again, was an act of love instead of an act of fear. But standing in this airport, breathing air that still smelled faintly like the jasmine trees that used to line our old street, I wasn't sure I believed my own excuse anymore. Come on, I said, taking his hand. Grandma is waiting outside. We walked through the terminal together, Haon chattering about the airplane snacks and whether Texas had good ice cream. I kept my eyes forward, focused on getting through baggage claim, focused on anything except the fact that somewhere in this city, on any given day, I could turn a corner and see him. I didn't let myself think about what would happen if I did. Near the sliding doors, a group of rideshare drivers held up handwritten signs and a family reunited with tearful hugs a few feet away. Hans squeezed my hand tighter, tired now, ready to be done traveling. That's when I felt it. A pull low in my chest, sudden and unmistakable, the kind of pull I hadn't felt since the night everything between June and me had changed forever. I turned my head. Across the terminal, half hidden behind a pillar, a tall figure in a grey jacket stood with his back to me. Broad shoulders I would recognize anywhere, dark hair a little longer than I remembered. My heart stopped. It can't be him. It can't be. The man shifted, like he sensed something too, like some invisible thread between us had just pulled taut after 6 years of silence. I grabbed Hayon's hand and turned the other way, pulse pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Not yet, please, not yet, I'm not ready. But some part of me, the part I had spent 6 years trying to silence, already knew. Fate did not care whether I was ready. Chapter 2. The Name I Buried. The man in the grey jacket turned fully around, and the entire airport disappeared. It was him, Seojun Kang, 6 years older, jaw sharper, shoulders wider, but those were the same grey eyes that used to find mine across every crowded room we ever stood in. Jay? My name in his mouth felt like a hand closing around my throat. I froze mid-step. Haon's fingers still curled in mine, and for a moment I actually considered turning and running the way I had 6 years ago. But there was nowhere left to run. My parents were waiting outside. My son was standing right beside me, tired and confused and looking up at the stranger who had just said my name like it belonged to him. Appa, Haon tugged my hand. Who is that? I couldn't answer. My throat had closed around every word I owned. June took a step closer, disbelief written across his face like he was looking at a ghost that had learned how to walk. "It's really you." "June," I managed, barely a whisper. His eyes dropped, and I felt the exact second they landed on Haon. I watched something shift behind them. Confusion first, then a flicker of something softer, gentler, the way adults look at children even when they don't understand why their chest suddenly aches. "Hi," Han said, because my son had never once in his life been shy. "I'm Haon." June crouched down without thinking, the same way he used to crouch beside stray cats behind our old apartment building. "Hi Haon, I'm June." "I know," Haon said, grinning. "You're the man in the picture." The airport noise around us kept moving, strollers and suitcase wheels and boarding announcements, but everything near us had gone completely still. June looked up at me, something breaking open in his expression. The picture. Heat crawled up my neck. "He means my old photo album." "You kept photos of me?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, I had kept far more than photos. I had kept his voice in my head every single night for 6 years. I had kept the sound of his laugh folded somewhere behind my ribs where it still hurt to touch. Haon, blissfully unaware of the storm he had just set loose, reached out and grabbed June's hand like they were old friends. "Are you coming home with us?" "Haon," I said quickly. "We don't even know if June has time." June straightened slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. "I have time." Something in his voice told me this wasn't about airport small talk anymore. This was a man staring at the 6 years I had stolen from him without permission, trying to decide whether to be angry or something far more dangerous. Curious. "You disappeared," he said quietly, like the words had been sitting in his chest this whole time, just waiting for me to come back so he could finally say them. No number, no messages, nothing. "I know. 6 years, Jay." My chest tightened at the way his voice cracked on my name. "I had my reasons." "Then tell me them." Haon looked between us, sensing the tension even if he couldn't name it. "Are you guys fighting?" "No, baby," I said softly, forcing my voice steady even though my heart was slamming against my ribs. "Grown-ups just have a lot to catch up on." June crouched again, meeting Haon at eye level, and something about the gentleness in that movement made my throat burn. "How old are you, buddy?" "5. I'm turning 6 in 2 weeks." I watched the number land behind June's eyes like a stone dropped into still water. He didn't say anything right away. He just looked at Haon's face a moment too long, the curve of his jaw, the shape of his eyes. Features that belonged to someone standing much closer than either of us wanted to admit. 6 years old, June repeated slowly, and when his gaze lifted back to mine, it wasn't confusion anymore. It was the beginning of a question I wasn't ready to answer. Chapter 3. The question he wouldn't ask. I felt the question hanging in the air between us, unspoken but impossible to ignore, and I did the only thing I knew how to do. I looked away. "We should get going," I said, my voice thin. "My parents are waiting outside." June didn't move at first. His eyes stayed on Haon a moment longer, studying him the way someone studies a photograph they can't quite place, searching for a memory just out of reach. Then he stood, slow and careful, like the ground beneath him had shifted and he wasn't sure it was steady yet. "Let me walk you out," he said. It wasn't a request. It was something closer to a man refusing to let go of the one thread that might unravel everything he'd spent 6 years trying to understand. "You don't have to," I said. "I want to." Haon, oblivious to the weight pressing down on both of us, slipped his hand into June's without asking permission, the way children do when their instincts trust someone before their minds have any reason to. "Come on, Uncle June." June's breath caught. I saw it happen, the smallest hitch in his chest, like the word uncle had landed somewhere he wasn't prepared for it to land. "Uncle June," he repeated softly, testing the sound of it. That's what I call you in my head, Hyeon said matter-of-factly. Because Appa has your picture, so you're basically family. I wanted to disappear into the floor. June looked at me over Haon's head, and there was something dangerously close to hope flickering behind the disbelief in his eyes. Family, he said quietly, like he was asking me to confirm or deny it. I said nothing, because anything I said would either be a lie or a truth I wasn't ready to hand him standing in the middle of an airport terminal. We walked together toward the exit, Haon between us, chattering about the plane ride, about how turbulence felt like a roller coaster, about how he wanted ice cream the second we got outside. Every few seconds, June's eyes drifted from Haon's face to mine, back and forth, like he was trying to solve a puzzle that refused to complete itself. He has your smile, June said quietly, almost to himself. My chest ached. Does he? And someone else's eyes. I kept my gaze fixed straight ahead, refusing to let my expression give away the truth clawing at the inside of my ribs. Someone else's eyes. His eyes. Grey, sharp, achingly familiar, staring back at me every single day from our son's face. And somehow in 6 years, no one outside my family had ever looked closely enough to notice. Until now. The automatic doors slid open, and warm Texas air hit us, thick with the smell of cut grass and distant rain. My mother spotted us first, her face lighting up at the sight of Haon before her eyes moved past him and landed on June. Her smile faltered. "Oh," she said quietly, the single syllable carrying 6 years of dread finally arriving at her doorstep. "Mrs. O," June said, polite despite the storm clearly still working behind his eyes. "It's been a while." My mother's gaze flicked to me, silent panic passing between us in the space of a heartbeat. "Yes," she said carefully, "it certainly has." Haon let go of June's hand and ran straight into her arms, chattering about the flight, about June, about ice cream, blissfully unaware that the adults around him were standing in the wreckage of a truth that was no longer as buried as I had convinced myself it was. June watched them for a moment, then turned back to me, his voice low enough that only I could hear it. "We need to talk, Jay." I swallowed hard. "Not now." "Then when?" I didn't have an answer, because every version of that conversation ended with me finally saying the one sentence I had spent 6 years running from, and I wasn't ready to watch his face break the way I knew it would. Chapter 4. The Life I Built Without Him. "Soon," I said, because it was the only word I could manage that wasn't a lie, and wasn't the whole truth either. June studied me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether to push harder or let it go. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket, and something in his expression shifted, duty pulling him back from wherever his thoughts had wandered. "I have to go," he said, "but I'm not letting this disappear again." "June." "I mean it, Joe." His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath it now. 6 years of silence is enough. He crouched one more time to say goodbye to Haon, who threw his small arms around June's neck without hesitation, and I had to look away, because watching them together did something to my chest I wasn't prepared for. Then he was gone, walking toward the parking garage, and I finally let out the breath I had been holding since the moment he said my name. My father pulled the car around, and we loaded the suitcases in near silence, my mother shooting me worried glances the entire time. Haon climbed into the back seat, still talking about June, about rocket ships he wanted to show him, about how he hoped June liked space as much as he did. I stared out the window as the airport shrank behind us, replaying every second of that encounter, my pulse still refusing to settle. By the time we pulled into the driveway of my parents' house, my phone had already buzzed twice. I didn't need to look to know who it was. The front door opened before we even reached it, and Minseo stepped out onto the porch, wiping his hands on a dish towel, his expression softening the moment he saw us. "You're finally home," Minseo said, jogging down the steps to take a suitcase from my hands. Haon lit up instantly. "Minseo." "Hey, little astronaut." Minseo scooped him up with the easy familiarity of someone who had been part of our lives for 2 years now, ever since he moved into the apartment next to mine in Seattle, and somehow worked his way into becoming the steady, gentle presence Haon and I both needed. Minseo wasn't the explosion June had always been in my life, all fire and gravity and impossible pull. He was quiet warmth instead, patient, steady, the kind of person who showed up without being asked and stayed without demanding anything in return. We weren't married, not yet, but there was a ring in his drawer we both pretended I didn't know about, and there was a version of my future that included him without complication. Until 40 minutes ago. "How was the flight?" Minseo asked, setting Haon down. "Long," I said, forcing a smile. Haon slept most of it. Minseo's eyes searched my face the way they always did when something was wrong, gentle and unhurried, never pushing. "You look pale. Just tired." He didn't believe me, I could tell, but he let it go, the way he always let things go, until I was ready to hand them to him on my own terms. That patience was one of the reasons I had let myself fall into something steady with him in the first place. My mother caught my eye from the doorway, her expression tight with worry. She hadn't told Minseo about June yet, and neither had I, and standing there in the driveway with my son wrapped around Minseo's leg, and my heart still racing from an airport encounter I hadn't asked for, I realized the life I built to protect myself was about to collide with the one I had spent 6 years trying to outrun. My phone buzzed again. "June, I'm not giving up until you tell me the truth." I stared at the screen until the words blurred, and somewhere behind me, Haon's laughter rang out bright and unaware, completely unaware that his entire world was standing on the edge of changing forever. Chapter 5. What the Night Remembered. I slid my phone into my pocket before Minseo could see the screen, my hands trembling more than I wanted to admit. "Everything okay?" he asked, tilting his head, that same quiet patience in his eyes that always made me feel like I could tell him anything, except the one thing that mattered most. "Just work stuff," I lied. He nodded, letting it go, and helped carry the last suitcase inside, while Haon ran ahead to claim his old room. I stood alone in the driveway for a moment, the Texas heat pressing down on my shoulders, and closed my eyes. That was a mistake. The second the darkness settled behind my eyelids, the memory rose up uninvited, the way it always did when my guard slipped even slightly. The graduation party. The music too loud, the laughter too easy, June's hand finding mine across a crowded room like it belonged there. "I've been wanting to tell you something," he had said that night, his voice low against my ear, his breath warm with the sweetness of stolen drinks. I opened my eyes fast, cutting the memory off before it could go further, my heart pounding against my ribs. Not now. Not here. Inside, the house smelled like my mother's cooking, garlic and sesame oil drifting from the kitchen, and Haon's laughter rang out from somewhere down the hall where he was showing Minseo his old toys. I pressed my palm flat against the wall, grounding myself, forcing my breathing to slow. My mother appeared beside me, her voice barely above a whisper. "He knows something is different, doesn't he? Junon." "He suspects," I admitted. He kept looking at Haon like he was trying to solve a math problem. "And Minseo?" "Doesn't know anything." Her expression pinched with worry. "Jay, you cannot carry two truths forever. Eventually they collide." "I know." "Then what are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer, because every path in front of me led somewhere I wasn't ready to walk. If I told June everything, I risked shattering the careful peace I had built with Minseo. If I said nothing, I risked June discovering the truth on his own, and I knew exactly how much worse that would be. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I didn't need to check it. "June, can we talk tonight? Just the two of us." My thumb hovered over the screen for a long moment before I finally typed back 3 words. "Me. I'll try." The second I hit send, Haon came bounding down the hallway, Minseo close behind him, both of them laughing about something involving a toy rocket ship that used to be my son's favorite thing in the world, the same rocket ship a stranger at a birthday party had once given him, without either of them knowing what that gift truly meant. "Appa, can Minseo build the rocket with me?" "Of course, baby." Minseo caught my eye over Haeon's head, something quietly hopeful in his expression, like he was imagining a future where moments like this became ordinary, unremarkable, simply what our life looked like. My chest ached with guilt I couldn't quite name. I loved Minseo, I did. Just not the way I had once loved June, the way that used to feel like standing too close to a fire and never once wanting to step back. That night, after Haon fell asleep clutching his old rocket ship, I stood outside on the porch, phone in hand, staring at June's name on the screen, knowing that whatever I said next would decide everything. Chapter 6. What I Finally Said. The porch light buzzed faintly above me, moths circling in tired loops, and I typed the address before I could talk myself out of it. Meet me outside my parents' house. Give me 20 minutes. June's reply came instantly, like he had been waiting with his phone in his hand this entire time. "June, I'm already in the car." 15 minutes later, headlights swept across the driveway, and my heart climbed into my throat. I stepped off the porch before he could knock, before Minseo or my parents could hear anything, and walked toward him across the dark lawn. June got out of the car slowly, his expression unreadable in the dim light, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets the way they always used to when he was nervous. "You came," I said. "You asked." We stood there for a moment, 6 years of silence stretching wide between us, neither of us sure who should speak first. It was June who finally broke it. "I looked at him for 2 hours straight in that airport," he said quietly, "and every minute some part of me kept screaming that I already knew the answer." My throat tightened. "June, just tell me, Jay." His voice cracked slightly, the steel from earlier softening into something far more fragile. "Please, I need to hear you say it." I closed my eyes, feeling 6 years of fear collapse under the weight of one simple truth. When I opened them again, I made myself hold his gaze. "He's yours," I whispered. "Han is your son." June didn't move. For a long moment he just stood there, breathing unevenly, like the words had knocked something loose inside his chest. "The graduation party," he finally said, his voice barely audible. I nodded. "You don't remember. You blacked out that night." "But you remember everything." "Every second," I admitted, tears finally spilling, despite every effort to hold them back. "I remember you telling me something, right before everything went dark. I never got to hear the rest of it." June's jaw tightened. "What did you hear?" "You said you'd been wanting to tell me something." My voice shook. "Then the next morning, you didn't remember any of it, and I heard you tell Marcus over the phone that you would never date your best friend because it would ruin everything." June's face went pale in the porch light. "I don't remember saying that. I believed it enough to disappear." "Jay," his voice broke entirely now. "I was scared that morning, confused. I said the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time, and it cost us 6 years. I thought I was protecting you," I said. "From a responsibility you never asked for, from a life you didn't choose. You should have told me. I was terrified you'd stay out of guilt instead of choice." June stepped closer, his eyes glistening under the porch light. "I have a son, Jay, 6 years old, and I missed every single day of his life because of one misunderstood sentence." "I know," I whispered. "I'm sorry." He was quiet for a long moment, staring past me toward the house where our son was sleeping, unaware that his entire world had just tilted on its axis. When June finally spoke again, his voice was low, steady, and utterly certain. "I'm not walking away this time," he said. "Whatever this looks like, whatever you need it to look like, I want to be his father, for real." I nodded, tears streaming freely now. Okay, he repeated, and for the first time since the airport, something between us finally felt like it was beginning to heal. even if it wasn't healing in the direction either of us once imagined. Chapter 7. The Truth Between Two Houses. There's something else you need to know, I said, my voice barely holding steady. June's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing the shift in my tone. What is it? I glanced back toward the house, toward the window where Min Seo's shadow moved behind the curtain, and my chest tightened with a different kind of fear now. Not the fear of June's anger, but the fear of losing something I had spent 2 years quietly building. I'm with someone, I said. His name is Min Seo. We've been together 2 years. June went still. Whatever hope had been building behind his eyes flickered, then dimmed, though he tried to hide it. Does he know? About tonight? About any of this? Not yet. Are you going to marry him? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know, maybe, someday. June looked down at the ground for a long moment, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say out loud. When he finally looked up, his expression had settled into something quieter, sadder, but steady. I'm not here to ruin that, he said. I want to be clear about that. I'm not asking you to choose me. My breath caught. June. I mean it, Jay. His voice was firm, despite the visible ache behind it. I lost my chance 6 years ago. I understand that. What I'm asking for now isn't you. It's him, my son. Something in my chest cracked wide open. Relief and grief tangled together so tightly I couldn't separate them. Relief that he wasn't demanding a reunion neither of us was ready for. Grief for the version of us that might have existed if one phone call had gone differently 6 years ago. He's going to have questions, I said, about why you weren't there, about why I hid this. I know. He might be angry. I'll take whatever he gives me, June said. I deserve it. We stood in silence for a while, the porch light buzzing softly above us, moths still circling in their endless loops. Then the front door opened, and Min Seo stepped out, his expression shifting the moment he saw us standing together in the dark. Jay? His voice was careful, cautious, taking in the tension between us like he was reading a language he didn't fully understand yet. I felt my stomach drop. Min Seo. His gaze moved from me to June, and something clicked behind his eyes, some instinct connecting pieces he hadn't known existed until this exact moment. You're the man from the photograph, he said slowly. The one Han talks about. June nodded once. I am. Min Seo's jaw tightened, and for a moment I braced myself for anger, for jealousy, for the kind of confrontation that would tear apart everything I had carefully built over 2 years. Instead, Min Seo's shoulders sagged slightly, like a truth he had quietly suspected for a long time had finally arrived at his door. You're Haeyeon's father, Min Seo said. It wasn't a question. My heart pounded. Min Seo, let me explain. You don't have to, he said quietly. I think some part of me always knew there was someone. I just never had a face to put to him. The three of us stood there in the porch light, caught in a moment none of us had prepared for, the careful walls I had built around my new life, cracking open under the weight of a truth, 6 years in the making. Chapter 8. Choosing honesty over fear. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The porch light hummed overhead, and somewhere down the street, a dog barked twice before falling silent. I should have told you, I said, finally breaking the silence, my voice thin with guilt. The moment we got serious, I should have told you everything about June, about Haeyeon's father, about all of it. Min Seo's eyes stayed on me, hurt visible but controlled, the same steady patience he always carried even now. Why didn't you? Because I was scared, I admitted. Scared that if I said his name out loud, I would have to face everything I ran from. It was easier to let you believe Haeyeon's father simply wasn't in the picture. He's not just not in the picture, Jay, Min Seo said quietly. He's standing right here. June shifted beside me, his voice careful when he finally spoke. I want to make something clear. I'm not here to take anything from you. I only found out about my son a few hours ago. I'm not asking for Jay back. Min Seo studied him for a long moment, something unreadable passing behind his eyes. Then what are you asking for? To know my son, June said simply. To be part of his life, in whatever way that ends up looking like. Nothing more. Minseo's shoulders relaxed slightly, though the hurt in his expression remained. He turned back to me. You should have trusted me with this. You're right, I said. I'm sorry. I'm not walking away over this, Minseo said after a moment, his voice steadier now. But I need you to be honest with me from here on. No more hiding pieces of your life because you're afraid of how I'll react. I promise, I said, and I meant it with everything I had left. June cleared his throat quietly. I should go. It's late, and I think the two of you need to talk. Wait, I said, stopping him before he could turn toward his car. Come by tomorrow, properly. Let me tell Haeon the truth before you two spend any more time pretending you're just an uncle. June's expression softened, something fragile and hopeful breaking through the tension in his face. You'll really let me tell him? We'll tell him together, I said. He deserves that much honesty from both of us. June nodded, his eyes glistening under the porch light. Thank you, Jay. Don't thank me yet, I said. This is going to be hard, for all of us. He looked between me and Minseo, something like respect settling into his expression. I know what I'm walking into. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for real. After he left, Minseo and I stood alone on the porch, the space between us heavy with everything unsaid. Do you still love him? Minseo asked quietly, no accusation in his voice, only the need to know. I thought about the question honestly, really let myself sit with it, instead of reaching for the easiest answer. I loved him for a long time, I said. But the man I fell for at 19 isn't the same as the family I'm choosing now. I choose you, Minseo. I choose this life. I just need you to let me build it honestly, with Haeon's father in it too. Minseo reached for my hand, his fingers steady around mine. Then let's build it, together. All of us, in whatever shape that ends up taking. Chapter 9. The Truth Haeon Deserved. The next morning, June arrived just after breakfast, standing on the porch with both hands shoved into his pockets, looking more nervous than I had ever seen him in the years I'd known him. Ready? He asked quietly. No, I admitted, but it's time. We found Haeon in the living room, building his old rocket ship on the floor, with pieces scattered around him, humming some tune he'd made up himself. He looked up when we walked in together, his face lighting up instantly. Uncle June, are we building rockets today? June knelt down beside him, and I watched his hands tremble slightly as he picked up a loose piece from the floor. Actually, buddy, your Appa and I need to talk to you about something important. Han tilted his head, sensing the shift in the room the way children always do. Is it bad? No, I said, kneeling down on his other side. It's actually something good. Something we should have told you a long time ago. Han looked between us, curiosity replacing worry. What is it? I took a breath, steadying myself one final time. Remember when you asked me if you could have another daddy for your birthday? Han nodded slowly. You already have one, I said softly. You just didn't know who he was yet. Haeon's eyes widened, moving from me to June, understanding dawning slowly across his face. Uncle June is my dad. June's composure cracked completely, tears sliding down his face as he nodded. I am, buddy. I didn't know about you until yesterday, or I would have been here every single day of your life. Haeon was quiet for a long moment, processing, his small hands still holding pieces of the rocket ship. Then he looked up, his voice small but steady. Why didn't you know? That's a grown-up mistake, June said gently, and it's one I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Han considered this with the serious focus only children seem to manage, then set down his rocket piece and threw his arms around June's neck. Okay, he said simply, the way only a child could accept something so enormous with such uncomplicated trust. Can you still be Uncle June sometimes, and Dad other times? June laughed through his tears, holding Haeon tightly. You can call me anything you want, buddy. Anything at all. I watched them together, my own tears falling freely now, 6 years of fear finally settling into something that felt, for the first time, like peace instead of dread. Minseo appeared in the doorway, watching quietly, and when Haeon spotted him, he grinned. Minseo, guess what? Uncle June is actually my dad. Minseo's eyes met mine over Haeon's head, something steady and warm passing between us. I heard, buddy. That's pretty amazing news. Are you still going to be my Minseo, though? Always, Minseo said, kneeling down to join them on the floor. You get to have all of us now. June caught my eye across the room, and in that look was everything neither of us needed to say out loud anymore. Not a reunion, not a second chance at what we once were. Just two people who had finally chosen honesty over fear, building something real out of the wreckage of 6 lost years. Epilogue. What we built instead. 2 years later, I stood in the backyard of the house Minseo and I had bought together, watching Haeon chase his cousins across the grass, laughing so hard he nearly tripped over his own feet, the same way he always had since he was small. June crouched near the grill beside Minseo, the two of them arguing good-naturedly about whether the chicken needed 5 more minutes, an easy rhythm between them that had taken time to build but felt entirely natural now. Every other weekend, Han spent his Saturdays at June's place, building model rockets, learning about the stars, filling notebooks with questions about space that June patiently answered one by one. Every night he spent at home, he fell asleep beside Minseo's steady presence, safe and certain, in a family that looked nothing like what either of us had imagined 6 years ago, but felt more honest than anything I had built out of fear. Dad, watch this. Haeon called out, and both June and I turned instinctively, the word no longer complicated between us, simply true. June caught my eye across the yard and smiled, the kind of smile that no longer carried old wounds, only gratitude for the family we had managed to build out of honesty instead of silence. I had spent 6 years believing that protecting the people I loved meant carrying every truth alone. It took losing those years to finally understand that real love was never about disappearing to make things easier. It was about staying, telling the truth even when it terrified you, and trusting the people around you to hold it with care. Minseo's hand found mine as Han launched his rocket toy into the summer air, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't running from anything. I was finally, completely, home.